We are back. You are chatting with John P. Today we have our master watchmaker, Hans, here in the studio. How are you, Hans?
Very well. Thank you for having me. How are you doing?
Absolutely great. Thank
That's
you
awesome.
for asking. And guys, actually in the comments for weeks now, you've been asking for Hans, and we shot a video a week or two for you, but there were some audio issues and some editing problems. So we're actually back here again, making sure that we bring Hans, because I know that you all love him. And if you want to see him again in the future, make sure to leave it in the comments below, because it's always a challenge to get him off of the workbench, because he's working on so many of your watches and really interesting things. What do you have on your wrist today, Hans?
Well, I'm doing the German thing. It's a Meistersinger with one hand only. I don't know if the camera actually catches that. But it's a little bit, takes time to get used to it, to read the time. But I like
Usually
the
you
effect.
wear your own watches, but today
That is correct.
you switched it up a little
I
bit.
do the German thing.
Excellent. And today I have on the wrist the Rolex OP39 Red Grape, discontinued now.
I
These
love
things,
it, man.
the
That's
problem
nice.
with this is these have gone up in price the secondhand price the last few weeks, and I was wearing this as a everyday watch, and now the prices go up, and as a watch dealer with DelReyWatch.com, I just find myself not wanting to wear it anymore because it's becoming collectible, and that's something that's just a personal problem that I have. But
No, you keep them in excellent shape. That looks like a brand new watch.
well,
It is.
you keep it in excellent shape.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it.
Anyway, so what we're going to do today is we are going to talk with Hans, and he's going to debunk some myths as well as tell us what goes on in the service. We have a service center here at Del Rey Watch, and many of you have already sent us your pieces. And I was listening to we do some different ways that we kind of catalog our interactions with customers and collectors. And I was looking at some of the logs on the conversations, and it seemed like a common question people had is, what's actually happening at the service? Because not all services are the same. Whether you take a watch to like a mom and pop jewelry store or someone like
correct.
Hans, or even
It's
to
very,
the
very
brands,
different.
there's different levels of service
Differs
as well.
completely, yeah.
And so sometimes, even though we have probably the most competitive price on a full service, some people are really confused because they go to their local mall kiosk and they tell them something, and then they call us and they're very shocked. But then we tell them, hey, call the brand, and then they call us back. I will say that the brand Nomos actually has unbelievably low service prices, or at least they did about a year ago. Other than that, all the brands really do get you on the service, and that's why we have the service center. But Hans, why don't you... What happens? So let's say the customer sends in a watch and they say it stops or it's not running well. What do you do?
Look, I would like to go the extra lengths to explain exactly how the procedures are. Once we receive a watch here, it's unpacked from the package, is inspected. At that particular point, we take 6 pictures, just for our personal...
6 pictures.
Just to make sure the condition on receive of the watch is recorded. This step, by doing the estimate with the 6 pictures, logging all the serial numbers, the style numbers, this is already a waste of, basically takes about a half an hour to an hour time of my
master watchmaker time.
Absolutely.
You could have been repairing it early on.
But we don't charge for that time. This is just, we go the extra mile to really keep it all nice and tidy, to have every single part recorded, what is wrong, scratched at the crown, scratched at the crystal, at 10 o'clock side, those type of things. We capture all the serial numbers.
For internal use.
Absolutely. This is extremely important. In the kiosk already, in the mall, you will not have that, okay?
You might have extra scratches.
Yes, that is correct. After that is done, you open the watch, you inspect the movement, you do not completely disassemble the movement for an estimate, because that would be counterproductive. At that point, you could be repairing the watch already. But you do your best to see what the damage is, or if there is a damage at all, or if it just needs, you do the readings on the timing machine, you do all the electronic inspections we can do digitally, and then we know exactly the basic function of the watch and what's needed. At that point, we issue an estimate. Once the estimate is approved, this is the time when the clock starts running of returning the watch to the customer. If we say 2 weeks time, 3 weeks time to return the watch, the clock starts at the time of approval, no?
So let's say that, so we handle a lot of services. How many, let's say out of 10 services, how many of those services are probably exactly what we thought without looking at it, right? I think it's fair to say, so we give a preliminary estimate, but most of them are exactly
percentage.
as thought.
Yeah, It is exactly 8 out of 10. You can almost guess, but you have to make sure, because once you confront the customer with a written estimate or whatever we do, then
You stand by it.
You need to stand by it.
For at
and if you
least
do
1
it
year.
over the thumb, then you go, okay, I made a mistake of $300, which we have to pay then. It is what it is, but it is done very, very professionally.
Okay, so let's say the customer agrees for the service, they're ready, it truly is broken, there wasn't something simple. A lot of times we do a quick, simple thing, just complimentary.
Yes,
if it's on the bench, something simple, but usually if it gets to that point, there's something concerning.
There's a caveat
right?
to it, let's say, okay, a pin comes out, it's a case issue, okay, but you never do simple things on the movement side. Once you have an issue inside a Swiss movement or any movement, any mechanical movement, is like change. A good analogy would be changing half of a baby's dirty diaper. That does not work. You cannot do this. You need to do the full job, because one thing is for sure. If several quick services which are cheap and all sorts of options they have in the mall and the kiosk in the corner behind the sandwich shop, the watchmaker, you have to be very, very careful, because if they just clean, for example, the escapement of a watch, that gives you another year of running of the watch, but then the winding mechanism, the setting mechanism, all has that old grease and oil in it, so you cannot change a half a diaper, you have to change the whole diaper, you have to completely service the watch if it's needed.
Well, that's interesting. To give an example, a part can actually break or wear down, and the pieces can ruin other parts, right?
It is a chain reaction, especially, if the first wheel breaks because of the mainspring has full power, it will break more wheels inside at that point, of course, yes.
So I think that's something that to really drive home.
I would like to mention one thing which I appreciate so much about the customer base you have, also we have here in Delray Watch. Our customers are very particular, well-educated, I have to say. There's a shout out to our customers, really, because they actually send in fairly clean watches on the surface now with coronavirus and all that. I have worked in other high-end positions in the past. You actually receive watches with human materials on it. Let's put it that way. I don't want to go there, but you almost need a gas mask to touch those things. And the customers here in Delray are very, very particular, because they're true aficionados, they're collectors. And even if a watch is not water resistant, you can always take a paper towel, you put 70% alcohol on it, you squeeze it out so it's almost a tamp, and then you clean it up before you send it in, and another human being has to touch that. No, seriously. I know it sounds a little bit strange, but the shout out is actually to this customer base, where they actually all are fantastic, and not once here in Delray Watch received a disgusting watch.
Well, that's great. Thank you, guys. Hans is very appreciative of that. Does not have to pull out his gas mask. So Hans,
I look good in a gas mask.
I'm sure you did. So let's get into continuing on the line of the service, right? So where we're at, it's actually time to service that watch.
Yeah.
What happens?
Well, then you follow the procedures you learned in school and what the brands demand. You disassemble the whole movement, you disassemble the case, you ultrasound clean the case, you check all the gaskets are replaced. In the meantime, while the case and bracelets are cooking, per se, in the ultrasound, before the steam cleaning, then you work on the movement. The movement is taken apart in all the individual pieces. All the individual pieces with lupa and microscope are actually checked, or if they're still perfect. And once they're cleaned and all the dust and all the old oil is removed in the cleaning machine, which is also ultrasound based, then you reassemble it to manufacture specifications. And in the process of reassembling to manufacture specifications, you need to oil it to manufacture specifications.
And you have to know those specifications.
And you have charts and oiling charts and from the manufacturers. And obviously, when you do it like me for 40 years, it's like a chef, a five-star chef.
I've tried finding some of these charts recipes just out of curiosity, and they're not just out there on the internet. You actually have to know people or be in the watch industry or actually have been in the industry. So if you go to just some mom and pop jewelry store that has
a watch,
they will
not have that.
They're not going to have that.
I have a vast digital library at my disposal.
Did you make it digital yourself?
Absolutely.
You created this.
Yeah, I'm pretty good in what I do.
Hans always has these interesting things that we always find out later. These little secret
No, it's a
pieces of the process.
vast digital library of charts and oiling plans.
Okay, so everything's clean, put back together. It's
Yeah.
oiled.
It's quality controlled.
What happens in
It's
the quality
water test-
control?
Well,
Because there's a lot of time that goes into that, and I don't think
That is
that's
exactly
always
And
acknowledged.
that's right.
A lot of people say, "Oh, you're cleaning it and putting it back together.
Right.
That should take an hour." But the quality
No.
control, I see
That-
what you do with these.
Yes, that's where actually
All the time we're like, Hans, what this customer wants the watch back. Is it ready? Is ready? Is no? He has this process.
First of all, it needs to be quality control for 72 hours. Once it's already finished, but the regulating process is actually very, very time consuming.
Regulation.
Yeah, you need to regulate it in 10 different positions and record them. So I also one of my side things is that I have a software company, and I supplied Brege, I supplied Frank Müller, I supplied Vacheron Constantin, I supplied Diamonds International with software to track all those. I call it a predictive algorithm I use for those type of things. And out of the 10 positions, it projects the average gain and lose of time, and also the average service intervals.
Oh, wow.
And power reserve as well. Power reserve, in my case, is projected by the software. I don't sit there for 48 hours or 72 hours and check till the watch stops. No need for that.
So let's say that it passes the quality control, everything is good, and most of the time it does. But especially with older watches, maybe you have to go back, regulate it, something like that. Check
Sure. You make sure that everything is ticking and clicking at the same as it's supposed to be.
So from start to finish, the very first second that you touch that watch, including the estimate process, which is pre-cost, right? No cost for that.
Absolutely.
Going the examination, all of those steps, the documentation, start to finish until the point where you say, "Hey, Federico, hey, John, this watch is completely done, and I'll stand behind that." Let's say just on the average movement, obviously there's much more complicated movements. But
I know exactly where you're going with that.
How much time is that of yours?
The average is between 8 hours to, if it's a perpetual calendar, with many functions, even a perpetual calendar with a chronograph function, and some Pateks have that, then you after 35 hours.
So at 8 hours, it's possible that watch is a $500 watch, right?
Sure.
Because sometimes $500,000 use the same movements as a $5,000 watch.
Correctly.
Sometimes,
but
a little bit different.
For me, a cheap movement or a really expensive movement at that point makes no difference. They all are taken care with the same love and care, tender love and care. You
and
do
the amount
it
of time.
Yeah, because you're a professional. You give the customer. It doesn't matter if the movement is cheap or expensive. You do these steps exactly like it's supposed to be.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's just really important to drive home just the amount of time it actually takes. So sometimes, when people do, they get a watch that's a little bit more affordable and they have an issue with it. A lot of times it doesn't happen, especially if it's purchased new. But sometimes you do get a $500 watch somewhere like an eBay, and then you have a bit of an issue, but then you send it to anyone. It doesn't matter if it's the manufacturer. And sometimes you start weighing the cost of the service against,
obviously.
And I think it's very fair to say some people think or they expect the service price to be directly proportionate to the value of the watch, and that's not the case because it's based on time, right?
Exactly. And if a serious watchmaker puts in its time, it's always the same amount of time. If it's a Seiko or any other cheaper watch or a Rolex, the same amount of time is consumed in order to achieve the final goal, to give back to the customer a perfect product.
Interesting. So something to keep in mind when you're out there and you're considering long-term maintenance and service costs, because just like an automobile, there are service costs that are involved, but luckily Hans here and we stand by the warranty, so we do try to give you kind of a feeling of relief there.
Sure, and I think after all is considered and said and done, we do offer a very competitive price.
I would have to agree.
Honestly,
anyway, Hans,
I can see that.
Is there anything that's totally shocking or anything in watch repair or the servicing or the types of complications that maybe someone would be just very surprised? It could be something that's rare that happens, or anything that you've seen, or any kind of word of caution you'd like to share with people that are maybe experiencing an issue with their watch, or to prevent issues from happening with their watch?
Do service them periodically. I mean, you can go 7 years. The manufacturers, they do push for shorter service intervals.
For modern watches, right?
Yes, but you can go with synthetic oils and high quality materials used in the Swiss watch brands in general, and modern watch brands, like high quality steels. You can go 7 years. Just don't let it. Sometimes in Rolexes you see you can feel that it's already, when you start it up after a few days not of using it, you can feel it's a little bit more rough to wind. At that point, there's a lot of friction already and a lot of stress on the winding mechanism. Then it's a good sign to service. And I guess another thing I would like to say, which is not that often nowadays, I stay completely away from dials which have radiation, and hands
really
which have radiation, and I would I recommend to consumers the same way, not to use those things, just to keep it as a in a safe, or you keep it as a heirloom, but do not.
Radium though, tritium is okay.
No.
We work on tritium watches.
Well, you sure?
Whatever. You're kidding. Hans is kidding, because it's a little bit different. It's much weaker. Of course, they've moved on to other luminous materials, but some of the brands were using tritium until the mid-90s.
Okay, good.
Even some, I think, up until like the year 2000.
Okay, did they all glow at night, those people who have those watches?
I mean, Hans, we've been sending you tritium watches.
Yeah, I have a Geiger counter.
So you?
No.
Okay, guys. So if you do have a radium watch,
I have a gas mask.
I don't know if that helps. I don't know. We'll consider that for the future. That's probably another topic. I did a video in the past talking about radioactive watches. Tritium,
I saw that. That was very good.
Tritium's okay, guys. Radium, if you breathe it in, you can have an issue. But some people are really cautious with that, especially if they have some type of pre-existing condition or something like that.
Yeah.
Or certain medical devices, it could have a little bit of a possible impact. But that's another video, and I made that in the past. Yeah. You can check that out. But anyway, guys, you asked for Hans, so here he was. Anything that you'd like to ask him in the comments below, that would be great. I'm sure we could help you there. Of course, we offer the services. Don't forget to check out delraywatch.com, where we can help you there. Don't forget to like, thumbs up, and subscribe, and all that other stuff. Guys, we've got to get Hans back to the bench.
Thank you so much for having me.
He's already backlogged here, getting into the holidays. But thanks, guys. You've been chatting with John P. Ciao.
Have a great day.